I stood in the middle of the courtroom, fluorescent lights cold as stone. He, the man who once taught me family means staying silent, had just revealed his true face right in front of the judge, with one uncontrolled swing of his arm. Years of verbal abuse, financial manipulation, and power plays came crashing down on him. I'd prepared for this day for so long. Every email, every receipt, every recorded threat, all lined up, waiting for this moment to explode. And when the gavel fell, it wasn't just the verdict that landed on him. His entire empire built on lies crumbled with it. My name is Lena Hart, and I've learned that family can be your greatest weakness when wielded by the wrong hands. The duplex on Maple Street wasn't much. Peeling paint on the shutters, a kitchen that groaned when you opened the cabinets. But it was mine, or at least, it would be once I scraped together enough for the down payment. 3 years post-divorce, working night shifts at Harbor Light Medical, I'd built something resembling stability from the wreckage of my marriage. My niece Noelle, 15 and perpetually glued to her phone, had been staying with me for the past month while my cousins sorted out some personal issues. The arrangement was temporary, just until things settled down. "Aunt Lena, there's no milk," Noelle called from the kitchen that morning, her voice carrying the particular whine of teenage inconvenience. "Check behind the orange juice," I replied, folding scrubs into neat squares. The overnight shift had left me bone-tired, but laundry didn't care about your sleep schedule. My phone buzzed. "Mom." "Lena, honey, are you coming to dinner Sunday? Calvin's making his famous brisket." Calvin Dorsey, the man who'd swept my mother off her feet 2 years after Dad's death, owner of Dorsey & Sons Contracting, pillar of the Riverton business community. To everyone else, he was generous, successful, the kind of man who picked up bar tabs and donated to Little League. To me, he was the reason my mother's voice had lost its independence, each word now carefully measured against his potential displeasure. "I'm working Sunday," I lied. "Monday, then? Calvin really wants to discuss something with you, something about helping with your credit situation." My spine straightened. "My credit is fine, Mom." "Well, with the divorce and all, Calvin just wants to help. He's family now." Family, the word tasted bitter. Calvin's version of family meant compliance, meant nodding when he pontificated about proper respect and knowing your place. It meant watching my mother shrink into herself, her opinions prefaced with "Calvin thinks" or "Calvin says." "I'll think about it," I said, which we both knew meant no. The following Monday, I found myself at their house anyway, not for the brisket, but because Mom's voice on the phone had carried that particular tremor that meant Calvin was listening. Their house sprawled across 2 lots in Northridge County's newest development, all marble countertops and cathedral ceilings. Calvin had built it himself, or rather, his crews had while he collected the profits. "Built with these hands," he'd say, holding up manicured fingers that hadn't touched a tool in decades. "Lena!" Mom's hug was quick, nervous. She'd lost weight, her favorite blue dress hanging loose on her shoulders. "Calvin's in his office. He'll be right out." The dining room table was set for 4. I counted twice, confirming my suspicion before Calvin emerged, all pressed khakis and practiced smile. "There's my favorite stepdaughter," he boomed, though I was his only stepdaughter. "Looking tired? Those night shifts wearing you down?" "I'm fine." Sure. Independent woman, right?" His chuckle held no warmth. "Your mother worries. We both do. That's why I wanted to talk to you about an opportunity." He slid into his chair at the head of the table, gesturing for me to sit. I remained standing. "I need someone with good credit to co-sign on some equipment loans. Temporary thing, just until the Richardson project payment comes through. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Maybe help with that house down payment you've been saving for." "My credit is my business, Calvin." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Family helps family, Lena. That's how it works. Your mother understands that." I looked at Mom, who was studying her plate with intense focus. "I do this for you," Calvin continued, his voice dropping to that reasonable tone that preceded his worst manipulations. "And you get the security you need, Win-win, unless you prefer struggling alone in that rental. I prefer managing my own finances. The silence stretched until Mom finally spoke. Lena, honey, Calvin's just trying to help. The equipment is for the business. It's all legitimate. Legitimate businesses don't need their stepdaughter's credit, I said. Calvin's fist hit the table, rattling the china. You think you're better than this family? Than what I've built? Your mother was drowning in debt when I met her. I saved her. I'm offering to save you too. If you drop the attitude and show some gratitude. Gratitude, I repeated. Is that what you call it when you control someone with money? Calvin provides for us, Mom whispered. He takes care of everything. Looking at her, this shadow of the vibrant woman who'd raised me, I understood. This wasn't about equipment loans or credit scores. This was about power, about adding another string to Calvin's collection of human marionettes. I need to go, I said, grabbing my purse. You walk out that door, Calvin called after me. And don't expect help when that rental goes month to month, when that car breaks down, when life gets too heavy to carry alone. I paused at the threshold. I've been carrying it alone for 3 years. I think I'll manage. But as I drove home through Riverton's quiet streets, Calvin's words echoed. He was right about one thing. Life could get heavy. I just didn't know yet how much weight he was about to add to mine. The first notice arrived on a Thursday. I'd just gotten home from a 12-hour shift, still in my scrubs, when I saw the certified mail slip tucked into my door. My hands were steady. Years of inserting IVs will do that. But something cold settled in my stomach as I signed for the envelope. Past due notice, second attempt. I stared at the letterhead, Ridgemont Equipment Financing, amount owed $18,500, cosigner Lena M. Hart. My knees hit the kitchen chair before I realized I was falling. The account number, the dates, my signature, except I'd never signed anything. The forgery was good, practiced, but the A in Lena was wrong, too round, too careful. I called Mom first, no answer. Then again, on the third try, Calvin picked up. Lena, figured you'd be calling. What did you do? Accounting error. They sent the notice to the wrong address. I'm handling it. You forged my signature. Silence. Then, that's a serious accusation. You sure you didn't sign something at dinner and forget? You've been working so many nights. I didn't come to dinner, remember? I refused. Must have been the backup paperwork then, from when you agreed to help. Don't worry about it. Payment's going out tomorrow. The line went dead. I sat there, phone in hand, the weight of what he'd done settling over me like a shroud. He'd used my information anyway, taken my refusal and turned it into fraud. Maria Torres found me the next morning in the Harbor Light break room, scanning documents on my phone. We'd been friends since nursing school, but she'd traded bedpans for briefs, working at Fairview Legal Aid. You look like death, she said, sliding into the opposite chair. Rough night? I showed her the notice, watched her expression shift from concern to anger. Lena, this is identity theft. You need to file a police report. He's my stepfather. He's a criminal who happens to be married to your mother. Maria pulled out her phone, already typing. First, we document everything, then we freeze your credit, then we nail this bastard to the wall. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a detective in my own life. Every piece of mail got photographed, every bank statement scrutinized. I found 2 more accounts, a business credit line and another equipment loan, all with my forged signature, all past due. He's drowning, Maria explained, spreading the papers across her office desk. Look at the pattern. The loans started 3 months ago, right when the Northridge County building permits show a suspension on Dorsey & Sons projects. I recorded our next phone call, Maria coaching me on what to say. Calvin, I need those loans transferred out of my name. Can't do that, sweetheart. Banks don't work that way. But like I said, I'm handling the payments. You're not handling them. I'm getting notices. My credit score dropped 60 points. Temporary setback. The Richardson project is about to pay out. 200 grand. More than enough to clear everything up. I wanted in writing, a payment plan, something legal. His laugh was sharp. Legal? We're family. Lena. Family doesn't need lawyers. Your mother wouldn't appreciate you making trouble like this. Then put Mom on the phone. She's resting. These accusations of yours have upset her. Made her blood pressure spike. That what you want? To hurt your mother because you can't trust the man she loves? I hung up, added the recording to my growing file. Calvin tried new tactics. A check arrived for $500. Memo line reading, family help. I didn't cash it. Another for $1,000. For past medical bills, I photographed it, filed it away. He was trying to establish a pattern, make it look like he was supporting me, that I'd accepted his financial help. Then came the text from Mom. Calvin paid off your credit card. You should thank him. I checked online. My Visa, the one I'd been carefully paying down, showed a zero balance, but the payment came from an account I didn't recognize, an account that, after some digging, traced back to the same fraudulent credit line in my name. He was using my own identity to pay my debts, creating a paper trail of dependency. He's smart, Maria admitted, reviewing the evidence, but he's also desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. She was right. The mistake came in an email, forwarded accidentally by Calvin's secretary, an internal memo about restructuring debt obligations that mentioned the Heart collateral and included a PDF of loan documents, my signature on every page, each one slightly different, like he'd been practicing. This is it, Maria breathed. This proves intent, forgery, fraud. We can file now. What about Mom? What about her? Lena, he's destroying your future to prop up his failing business. Your mom made her choice. Now you need to make yours. That night, I sat with Noelle at our small kitchen table, helping her with algebra homework. Normal, peaceful. The duplex might have peeling paint, but it was honest, mine, worth protecting. Aunt Lena, you okay? I looked at my niece, at the trust in her eyes. Yeah, just thinking about how sometimes the right thing isn't the easy thing. Is this about Uncle Calvin? Mom says he's kind of a jerk. Out of the mouths of babes. Yeah, it's about Calvin. So do the right thing, even if it sucks. She went back to her equations. Problem solved in the way only teenagers can manage. The next morning, I signed the papers at Maria's office. Formal dispute of fraudulent accounts. Request for criminal investigation. Petition for restraining order. Once we file, Maria warned, there's no going back. He'll know you're serious. This will explode. I thought about Mom's shrinking frame, her trembling voice, the way she flinched when Calvin's mood shifted, about my credit score, my savings, my future being bled dry by a man who believed family meant ownership. Let it explode, I said, and signed my name, my real signature, clear and strong and mine. The call from my landlord came at 3 a.m., jarring me awake between shifts. Ms. Hart, I'm sorry to call so late, but I received a notice from the property management company. There's an issue with your rental application credit check. I sat up, instantly alert. What kind of issue? I've been here 3 years. Yes, but they do periodic reviews for month-to-month leases. Your credit score. It's showing significant debt. They're threatening eviction proceedings if you can't provide explanation within 30 days. After he hung up, I stared at my phone's glowing screen. 2:47 a.m. In 4 hours, I'd be inserting IVs, monitoring vitals, keeping people alive, but I couldn't even keep my own life from flatlining. The Riverton Mirror's business section that morning made everything clear. Dorsey & Sons under investigation for bid rigging allegations. The article was sparse on details, but Maria filled in the gaps when I called her from the hospital parking lot. Northridge County Construction Commission launched an audit last month. Anonymous tip about fake subcontractor bids. Calvin's been inflating project costs, pocketing the difference. So he's using my credit to stay afloat. Worse, I pulled records. He's taken out 3 more lines of credit in the last week, all using your information. He's not just staying afloat. Lena, he's building a lifeboat, and you're the hull. My hands shook as I walked into work. Noelle had texted about needing lunch money. The electric bill was due. My car had started making that grinding noise again. Every normal life expense now felt like a mountain when my credit was being destroyed in real time. Dr. Patricia Sims found me in the supply closet, counting saline bags for the third time. "You okay, Hart? You seem distracted." "Family stuff," I managed. She studied me with the sharp gaze that made her Harbor Light's best diagnostician. "You know, my brother-in-law does financial counseling. If you need help." "It's being handled." But it wasn't. Not really. That evening, Mom finally called back. "Lena, you need to drop this nonsense. Calvin's business is having temporary challenges. All businesses do. He'll sort it out. He's committing fraud. Mom, in my name. He's protecting his employees. 60 people? Lena, 60 families depend on Dorsey and Sons. You'd rather see them unemployed?" "I'd rather not lose my home." Silence. Then, quieter. "He's setting aside money for you, a trust. Once the investigation clears, and it will, he's done nothing wrong, you'll be compensated." "I don't want his money. I want my name cleared." "Your name? What about mine? What about what people will say when they find out my daughter sued my husband? How could you be so selfish?" The word hit like a slap. Selfish. For wanting my own credit, my own future, my own life. Calvin's voice came on the line, smooth as oil. "Evelyn's upset. Lena, we both are. But I have good news. Talk to some friends at First National. They're willing to consolidate all the debt, move it into a business account. Your name comes off everything. In exchange for? Drop the legal action, sign an NDA, walk away clean. And if I don't? Then we're all going to learn how deep family loyalty really goes." That night, I found Noelle crying in her room. Her best friend had seen her using the free lunch program at school, started asking questions about why she was living with me instead of her parents. "I told her it was temporary," she sniffled, "but it's been 2 months now, and Mom still won't say when I can come home." I held her, feeling the weight of being responsible for someone else when I could barely manage myself. This was what Calvin counted on, that I'd crumble under the pressure of real life. Maria worked through the weekend, building our case. Financial forensics revealed the scope of Calvin's scheme. Shell companies, fake invoices, a construction empire built on paper and lies. My credit was just one pillar holding up his house of cards. "He's been at this for years," she explained, highlighting transaction patterns. "But the investigation spooked his usual lenders. That's why he needed you. Fresh credit, clean history, a family member who wouldn't raise bank suspicions." "How much has he taken?" "Including the newest lines, about 300,000. I stared at the number, more than I'd make in 5 years of night shifts. "There's something else," Maria continued. "Mason Dorsey, Calvin's son. He's listed as CFO, but I found his community college transcripts. 2 semesters of business classes, dropped out. He's a figurehead. Calvin controls everything." I thought about Mason, quiet and uncomfortable at family dinners, always deferring to his father, another puppet in Calvin's show. The eviction notice arrived the next day. 30 days to pay or vacate. My landlord apologized again when I called, but company policy was company policy. Credit scores mattered more than payment history. That evening, I drove past house after house in Riverton's suburbs, each one a reminder of the stability I'd almost achieved. The duplex down payment fund I'd scraped together. 2 years of overtime, extra shifts, skipped vacations, wouldn't even cover the fraudulent debt's monthly payments. At a red light, I called Mason Dorsey. He answered on the 5th ring. "Lena, this isn't a good time." "I know about the CFO title, the fake position." Silence. Then, "What do you want?" "The truth, on record, about your father's business practices." "I can't. You don't understand what he's like when someone betrays him." "I understand he's destroying my life, maybe yours too." "Mine was destroyed a long time ago." His voice cracked. "Look, there's a storage unit, off Highway 9. He keeps backups there. Physical documents he thinks clouds can't protect. Unit 47. Codes his birthday backwards. The line went dead. I sat in my car, engine idling, choice crystallizing. I could take Calvin's deal, sign away my rights, accept whatever crumbs he offered, keep the family peace, or I could drive to Highway 9, find Unit 47 and gather the ammunition to fight back. Noelle texted, "Aunt Lena, where are you?" I made spaghetti. My 15-year-old niece, making dinner because I was too overwhelmed to remember food existed. Another weight on the scales. I texted back, "On my way, save me a plate." But first, I turned onto Highway 9. The storage facility squatted beside Highway 9 like a concrete ghost town, security lights casting harsh shadows between the units. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, watching for cameras, for movement, for any sign this was a trap, but Calvin was too arrogant to imagine anyone would dare dig into his secrets. Unit 47 was in the back row, padlock rusty but solid, his birthday backwards, 51 to 91. The lock clicked open. Inside, banker boxes lined metal shelves, each labeled with cryptic abbreviations: NR 2019, RB Actees, DS Original. The dust made me sneeze, but underneath lay the sharp smell of paranoia, the scent of secrets hoarded. I pulled out my phone, turned on the flashlight, and began documenting. The first box held contracts, real ones, with legitimate signatures. Next to forgeries for comparison, Calvin had practiced each subcontractor's signature dozens of times, refining his technique. Practice sheets filled with my name made my stomach turn. He'd been planning to use me for months. Richardson Project, Actual, read one folder. Inside, 2 sets of books, one showing the inflated costs submitted to Northridge County, another with real numbers. The difference? $400,000. Just one project. My phone buzzed. Maria. "Where are you? Called 3 times. I texted back, "Getting evidence. Call you in an hour." The second shelf held correspondence, emails printed and sorted, including ones with county officials that reeked of bribery. "Appreciated your understanding on the permit delays. The donation to your campaign should process Monday." Signed by Calvin. Sent to Commissioner Hayes. Then I found it. A thumb drive taped inside a folder marked Insurance. I plugged it into my phone adapter, praying it would work. Files loaded slowly. Spreadsheets, PDFs, audio files dated over the last year. I clicked on one at random. Calvin's voice filled the storage unit. "Listen, Mike, I don't care what the real bid was. You submit what I tell you, or every contractor in Northridge will know you can't be trusted. You think anyone will hire you after I'm done talking?" Another file. "If that inspector comes around again, remind him about those photos from the Christmas party. His wife wouldn't appreciate seeing those." Blackmail, extortion, all recorded by Calvin himself. His arrogance so complete, he kept evidence of his own crimes. The last box on the bottom shelf was different. Personal documents. Mom's financial records from before she met Calvin. Bankruptcy papers. Dad's death certificate. Bills stamped final notice. Calvin had researched her, targeted her vulnerability, found a widow drowning in debt and thrown her a lifeline made of chains. But underneath those, I found documents that made me sink to the concrete floor. Loan applications in my name dating back 18 months. He'd been using my information long before I'd refused his request. The dinner, the ask for help, all theater. He'd already stolen what he needed. Mason's text came as I was photographing the last pages. "Dad's looking for you. Says you took something from the house. Be careful." I hadn't taken anything from the house, which meant Calvin knew I was digging. Time was up. I grabbed the thumb drive, photographed key documents, and selected 3 boxes of the most damning evidence. My car trunk barely held them all. As I drove away, headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. Following? Paranoia? I couldn't tell anymore. Maria met me at her office despite the late hour. Her paralegal, James, whistled low as we spread the evidence across the conference table. "This is comprehensive fraud, RICO-level corruption. The FBI would have a field day. We're not going federal, Maria said quickly. Not yet. County prosecution first. Better chance of protecting Lena. We worked until dawn, organizing, scanning, building an airtight case. The thumb drive contained over 100 hours of audio, Calvin threatening suppliers, bribing officials, discussing how to hide money offshore, and worse, conversations about other family members he'd exploited before me. Listen to this, James said, playing a file from 2 years ago. Calvin's voice. Evelyn's daughter has perfect credit, single, divorced, works nights. Once I marry the mother, getting the daughter's information will be easy. Family helps family, right? I ran to the bathroom and vomited. He'd planned it all. Mom wasn't just a victim, she was bait. When I finally made it home, Noelle was asleep on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes. A note on the coffee table. Waited up. School called about parent-teacher conference. Told them you'd come if you could. Sorry I'm so much trouble. I covered her with a blanket. This kid who apologized for existing while my stepfather destroyed lives without a second thought. My phone had 17 missed calls, all from Mom's number. But I knew who was really calling. Finally, a text. Lena, we need to talk. Calvin knows you have his property. He's willing to forgive everything if you return it. Don't make this worse. I texted back. Tell Calvin his property is safe with my lawyer. He'll be hearing from the county prosecutor's office tomorrow. The response came instantly. Not from Mom's phone, but an unknown number. You have no idea what you've started. I tried to keep this civilized. Family doesn't betray family. Remember that when everything falls apart. Maria filed our emergency petition at 8 a.m., request for asset freeze, criminal investigation referral, and immediate restraining order. The boxes of evidence went into official custody, copies to the prosecutor, originals sealed and logged. What now? I asked, exhausted beyond measure. Now we wait and watch. Calvin's going to get desperate, and desperate men do stupid things. She was right. By noon, my bank called about suspicious activity on accounts I didn't know existed. By 2, Harbor Light HR received an anonymous tip about me stealing medications. By 4, Noelle's school called. Someone had reported me as an unfit guardian. Calvin was fighting back, but he'd made a crucial mistake. Every attack left a trail. Every lie created evidence. The man who'd built an empire on forged documents was about to learn what real paperwork could do. That night, I sat with the printed emails showing Calvin had targeted Mom, had chosen her for her vulnerability and access to me. Did I show her? Destroy her illusions along with her marriage? Or let her keep believing in the fairy tale while it crumbled around her? Mason texted again. Dad's moving money offshore. Faster than usual. He's scared. Good luck. I saved the text. Evidence. Everything was evidence now. The storage unit key sat on my kitchen table, a small piece of metal that had unlocked Calvin's kingdom of lies. Tomorrow, Maria would present our case to the judge. Tomorrow, Calvin would learn that family, real family, meant protecting the vulnerable, not exploiting them. But tonight, I sat with my niece's homework, helping her solve for X, finding comfort in problems that had actual solutions. Outside, Riverton slept peacefully, unaware that one of its pillars of the business community was about to fall. And I was the one who'd lit the fuse. Calvin's counterattack began with precision. The Riverton business community was small, incestuous, everyone owing favors to everyone else. By Wednesday morning, his version of events had spread like wildfire. Did you hear about Evelyn Dorsey's daughter? I overheard at the hospital coffee station. Apparently she's trying to destroy her stepfather's business out of spite. Poor Evelyn. Doctor, Sims pulled me aside after rounds. Lena, I don't know what's going on, but someone called the board asking about your mental health evaluations. Said you've been exhibiting paranoid behavior. Let me guess. Anonymous concern? The call came from Dorsey & Sons' HR department. They claimed you'd been harassing their employees. I laughed, sharp and bitter. Their HR department is Calvin's secretary and his son who never finished community college. But the damage was spreading. 3 nursing contract agencies called to reassess my references. My car insurance company suddenly needed additional documentation. Even Noelle's school counselor requested a meeting about the stability of her home environment. Calvin had weaponized respectability, and I was bleeding out from 1,000 small cuts. The family dinner summons came through Mom again. "Please, Lena, Calvin wants to make peace. He's even having his lawyer draw up papers to remove you from all the loans. Just come to dinner. Let's end this like family." Maria advised against it. "It's a trap. He wants to intimidate you face to face, maybe get you to say something he can use." But I needed to see Mom, to look her in the eye and know if any of the woman who raised me still existed under Calvin's influence. "I'll wear a wire," I said. "That's not legal without—" "Then I'll record openly. Put my phone on the table. Let him know I'm documenting everything." Saturday evening, I drove to their house with my phone fully charged and Noelle safely at Maria's. The security system Calvin had installed, cameras at every angle, felt like entering a prison. Mom answered the door in a new dress, designer label visible, but her smile was tissue paper thin. "Lena, honey, you look tired." I wonder why. Calvin appeared behind her, all false warmth and practiced concern. "Let's not start with hostility. We're family here." The dining room was set for 4 again. This time, Mason sat in the 4th chair, staring at his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. "So," Calvin began, carving the roast with surgical precision, "I hear you've been spreading lies about my business practices." I placed my phone on the table, recording app visible. "I've been providing evidence of fraud to the proper authorities." His knife paused mid-slice. "That's a dangerous game, Lena. Accusations like that can ruin lives." "Like you ruined my credit, my reputation, my housing stability?" "I tried to help you, offered you opportunities. This is how you repay family kindness?" Mom's hand trembled as she reached for her wine. "Can't we discuss this calmly?" "Your daughter seems to prefer lawyers to family mediation," Calvin said, his voice dropping to that dangerous register I'd learned to fear. "Shows what kind of person she really is." "The kind who doesn't commit fraud," I said. Mason's fork clattered to his plate. "Dad, maybe we should—" "Quiet." Calvin didn't even look at his son. "Lena, I'm going to make this very simple. You have 2 choices. Sign this." He produced a folder from beside his chair, "which drops all legal action and includes a modest settlement for your troubles, or continue this path and watch everything you care about disappear." I opened the folder, non-disclosure agreement, release of all claims, and buried in the middle, an admission that I had misunderstood legitimate business dealings. "This makes me complicit in your crimes. This makes you smart, or stupid, your choice." "What about Mom? Does she know you researched her before you ever met? That you have files on her debt, her vulnerabilities? That she was just a pathway to my credit?" Mom's wine glass shattered against the floor. "That's enough," Calvin roared, standing so fast his chair tipped. "You ungrateful—" "Calvin!" Mom's voice, sharper than I'd heard in years. "The papers. You said you were introduced at the chamber meeting." "Evelyn. She's twisting things. You know how she is. Paranoid, vindictive." I pulled out my phone, found the audio file. Calvin's voice filled the room. "Evelyn's daughter has perfect credit, single, divorced, works nights. Once I marry the mother, getting the daughter's information will be easy." The silence that followed was absolute. Mom stared at Calvin like she was seeing him for the first time. Mason had gone pale. "You planned it," Mom whispered. "All of it. You didn't love me. You needed us." "Evelyn, that's old. Before I knew you, everything changed when—" "Get out of my house," Mom said. "Your house?" Calvin's laugh was ugly. "This is my house, built with my company, in my name. You have nothing without me. Nothing." "Then I'll have nothing," Mom said, standing on shaking legs. "Lena, do you have a good lawyer?" "The best," I said. Calvin's control snapped. He swept the dishes off the table, sending china crashing to the floor. You think you can turn my wife against me? You think your little recording means anything? I own judges in this county. I own the police chief. You own nothing, Mason said quietly. The FBI seized the offshore accounts yesterday. The investigator called me. It's over, Dad. Calvin turned on his son, face purple with rage. You talked to them? You betrayed me? You betrayed everyone first. Calvin lunged toward Mason, but I was already moving, pulling Mom back, getting her out of range. My phone captured everything. The threats, the admissions, the complete meltdown of a man who'd built his empire on controlling others. I'll destroy all of you, Calvin screamed. Every last one. You'll have nothing. Be nothing. You'll appear in court Monday, I said calmly. Our lawyer will be filing emergency orders tonight based on this recording. Protective orders for all of us. Calvin stood among the broken dishes, breathing hard, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. The emperor without his clothes, without his kingdom, without his power over us. Get out, Mom repeated. Pack a bag and get out of my sight. You can't. I can. Lena's not the only one who's been documenting things. Did you really think I was that stupid? That blind? Mom pulled out her own phone. Every threat, every controlling word, every financial manipulation. My lawyer has copies of everything. It was Calvin's turn to stare. Mom, meek, controlled Evelyn, had been building her own case. Consider it insurance, she said, against moments like this. Calvin left. What else could he do? Mason helped him pack one bag, the rest to be sorted by lawyers. As his car pulled away, Mom collapsed into my arms. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting us. I know, I said, holding her tight. I know. We spent the night at the house, Mom and I, sorting through the wreckage, both literal and figurative. Mason stayed too, silent but helpful, sweeping up broken dishes and broken trust. I'll testify, he said as dawn broke. Whatever you need, I'm done protecting him. Mom squeezed his hand. You're not responsible for your father's choices. Neither are you, I told her. By morning, Maria had filed the emergency orders. Calvin's assets were frozen pending investigation. The FBI had indeed seized the offshore accounts. The house of cards hadn't just fallen. It had been demolished, scattered to the winds. Mom would rebuild. So would I. Our credit, our trust, our sense of safety, all of it would take time to repair. But we'd do it honestly, without manipulation or control. As I drove home to Noel, to my small but honest life, I thought about Calvin's favorite phrase. Family helps family. He was right. We just had different definitions of help. The Northridge County Courthouse stood like a gray monument to justice, its columns reaching toward an overcast sky. I arrived early, hands steady despite the coffee I'd skipped. Maria walked beside me, pulling the wheeled case containing our evidence, while Mom followed with Mason. We looked like survivors heading into battle, which, I suppose, we were. Remember, Maria murmured as we cleared security, let him hang himself. Men like Calvin always do when challenged in court. Courtroom 4B was smaller than I'd expected, wood-paneled and austere. Calvin sat at the defendant's table with his lawyer, a sharp-suited man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Calvin's usual confident polish had tarnished, his tie slightly crooked, a muscle jumping in his jaw. Judge Rebecca Morrison presided, a woman known for her intolerance of financial crimes and courtroom theatrics. The court reporter positioned her hands, ready to capture every word. Case 2025, FC 0847, Hart v. Dorsey. Plaintiff seeks declaratory relief from fraudulent financial obligations, damages, and protective orders. The judge's voice cut clean through the room. Ms. Torres, you may begin. Maria transformed in court. Gone was my friend who'd shared nursing school horror stories. Here stood a legal warrior. Your Honor, we'll demonstrate through clear evidence that Calvin Dorsey systematically defrauded my client, forged her signature on multiple financial documents, and used intimidation to attempt to silence her. She began with the documents, each forgery displayed on the courtroom screens. My real signature compared to Calvin's attempts. The progression was damning, showing how he'd refined his technique over months. Calvin's lawyer, Mr. Brennan, tried to interrupt. "Objection. These documents haven't been authenticated by—" "I have affidavits from 3 handwriting experts," Maria said smoothly, producing the documents. "All confirm these signatures are forgeries." Judge Morrison nodded. "Continue." The financial records came next. Bank statements showing the damage. My credit scores plunge. The fraudulent accounts. The systematic destruction of my financial stability. Mom winced with each revelation, seeing the full scope laid bare. Then came the audio recordings. Calvin's voice filled the courtroom. "Listen, Mike, I don't care what the real bid was. You submit what I tell you, or every contractor in North Ridge will know you can't be trusted." Another. "Evelyn's daughter has perfect credit. Single, divorced, works nights. Once I marry the mother, getting the daughter's information will be easy." Calvin's composure cracked. He leaned urgently toward his lawyer, whispering harshly. Brennan looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Mr. Dorsey," Judge Morrison said sharply, "you'll have your opportunity to respond. Until then, remain silent." Maria called Mason to testify. He took the stand like a man walking to his execution, but his voice was steady. "I witnessed my father forge documents multiple times. He kept practice sheets in his office. He said family was just another resource to leverage." "Objection!" Brennan stood. The witness is testifying to direct observations." Judge Morrison cut him off. "Overruled." Mason continued, detailing the double books, the threats to contractors, the bribes to county officials. With each word, Calvin's rage built visibly, his hands clenching and unclenching on the table. When Calvin finally took the stand, the veneer of respectability had worn thin. He answered Brennan's softball questions with practiced ease, painting himself as a successful businessman trying to help his struggling stepdaughter. Then Maria cross-examined. "Mr. Dorsey, is this your voice on the recording discussing my client's credit score before you'd even met her?" "That's taken out of context." "Yes or no?" "Yes, but—" "Is this your signature on documents establishing credit lines in my client's name?" "She agreed to help." "Did she sign these documents?" Calvin's pause stretched too long. "She gave verbal consent." "So you forged her signature based on alleged verbal consent?" "I wouldn't use the word forged." Maria produced the practice sheets Mason had mentioned. Calvin's attempts at my signature repeated dozens of times. "What would you call this?" Calvin exploded. "You don't understand business. Deals need to move fast. Family supports family. She lived in that pathetic rental while I built an empire." "An empire built on fraud," Maria stated. "Built on opportunity." Calvin slammed his hand on the witness box. "These people—" He gestured at me, at Mom, at Mason. "They'd be nothing without me, nothing. I gave them everything, and this is how they repay me?" He turned to Judge Morrison, his control completely gone. "Do you know who I am? What I've done for this county? The jobs I've created? And you're going to let this ungrateful—" He spun toward me, rising from the witness chair. "You destroyed everything. My business, my marriage, my reputation, all because you couldn't just say thank you for the opportunity." "Mr. Dorsey, sit down," Judge Morrison commanded. But Calvin was beyond hearing. He stepped down from the witness box, advancing on our table. "You think you've won? You think destroying me makes you righteous?" "Mr. Dorsey?" The judge's voice cracked like a whip. "I made you," he screamed at Mom. "Pulled you out of debt, gave you a life worth living, and you—" He turned on me, his face contorted with rage. "You poisoned her against me, turned my own son." He lunged across the bar, separating us. I saw his hand rising, saw the violence he'd kept leashed finally breaking free. The slap connected with my face, sharp and shocking in the quiet courtroom, but I didn't move, didn't flinch. I'd been preparing for this moment, when Calvin would show everyone who he really was. The bailiff was on him instantly, pulling him back, but Calvin fought, trying to get at me again. "You ruined everything. Everything." "Order." Judge Morrison was standing now. "Bailiff, restrain the defendant. Mr. Dorsey, you are in contempt of court and have committed assault in my courtroom." Calvin continued struggling, spittle flying as he ranted. "She set me up. This whole thing. She wanted this. She made me." "Enough." The judge's gavel cracked down. "I've seen enough. Bailiff, remove Mr. Dorsey to holding pending contempt charges. Mr. Brennan, control your client or join him." As they dragged Calvin away, still screaming about ungrateful family and stolen opportunities, the courtroom fell silent. Mom was crying silently. Mason stared at his hands. The court reporter's fingers had stilled. Judge Morrison took a breath. Given the defendant's behavior and the overwhelming evidence of fraud, forgery, and financial abuse, I'm prepared to rule immediately. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff on all counts. All fraudulent obligations in Ms. Hart's name are hereby void. The defendant will pay full restitution for damages to Ms. Hart's credit and financial standing. She continued, her voice gaining strength. Furthermore, given the evidence of systematic fraud and the multiple forgeries admitted into evidence, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. A restraining order is granted, effective immediately. The gavel came down with finality. Maria squeezed my hand. We'd won, but sitting there with my face still stinging from Calvin's slap, watching Mom realize the full extent of her husband's manipulations, seeing Mason grapple with his father's public breakdown, victory felt hollow. Until I thought about my duplex, my credit, my future, all of it salvageable now, all of it mine again. Calvin had been right about one thing. Family helps family. He just never understood that real help means protecting each other from predators, even when the predator shares your name. The gavel's echo hadn't faded when Judge Morrison spoke again, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. Given Mr. Dorsey's physical assault in my courtroom, I'm adding assault charges to his contempt citation. Bailiff, ensure Mr. Dorsey remains in custody pending a bail hearing. She turned to the court reporter. Please mark that the defendant struck the plaintiff in open court, unprovoked, in front of multiple witnesses. From the holding area, we could hear Calvin's muffled shouts, his rage echoing through the courthouse walls. But here in the courtroom, a different energy settled, the quiet after a storm. Ms. Hart, Judge Morrison addressed me directly. Do you require medical attention? I touched my cheek, still hot from the slap. No, Your Honor, I'm fine. Let the record show the plaintiff has a visible red mark on her left cheek, consistent with being struck. The judge's eyes were steel. Ms. Torres, do you have any additional motions? Maria stood, composed despite everything. Your Honor, given the evidence of systematic fraud involving county contracts and the mention of bribing officials, we request the court notify the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division and the Northridge County Ethics Commission. Granted. The clerk will prepare the necessary notifications today. Judge Morrison shuffled papers, then looked up. I've presided over many financial fraud cases, but rarely have I seen such calculated predation within a family unit. Mr. Dorsey didn't just steal money, he stole trust, security, and peace of mind. She focused on me. Ms. Hart, the court orders full restitution. Every penny of debt fraudulently incurred in your name will be Mr. Dorsey's responsibility. Your credit reports will be corrected. The court will ensure the credit bureaus receive official documentation within 48 hours. Thank you, Your Honor, I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. Furthermore, the judge continued, given the evidence of Mr. Dorsey's hidden assets and the FBI's involvement, I'm ordering a complete asset freeze effective immediately. Ms. Torres, Work with the prosecutor's office to ensure Ms. Hart receives priority creditor status in any liquidation proceedings. Calvin's lawyer, Brennan, finally found his voice. Your Honor, my client clearly lost his composure, but your client assaulted someone in my courtroom. Mr. Brennan, after admitting to forgery, after evidence showed systematic fraud, there is no but here. Judge Morrison's tone could have frozen water. I strongly suggest you advise your client to seek a criminal defense attorney. He'll need one. She turned to Mason, who hadn't moved since his father's removal. Mr. Dorsey, Mason Dorsey, the court recognizes your courage in testifying. Many children never find the strength to stand against a parent's wrongdoing. Your honesty today may have prevented future victims. Mason's shoulders shook silently. Mom reached over, placing a gentle hand on his arm. As for the criminal proceedings, Judge Morrison continued, the district attorney will receive this complete transcript and all evidence by end of business today. Given what I've witnessed, I expect charges to include fraud, forgery, assault, and potentially RICO violations given the systematic nature of the crimes. A knock came from the side door. The bailiff conferred quietly with someone, then approached the bench. Judge Morrison's eyebrows rose as she read a note. It seems Mr. Dorsey is requesting to address the court from holding. Given his earlier behavior, that request is denied. However, I will note for the record that actions have consequences, and Mr. Dorsey is now facing his... She gathered her papers. This court is adjourned. Ms. Hart, Ms. Torres, please see the clerk for copies of all orders. And Ms. Hart? I looked up. No one has the right to strike you. Not in my courtroom. Not anywhere. Please consider pursuing separate assault charges with the police. As the judge left, the courtroom slowly unfroze. Mom was at my side immediately, examining my face with gentle fingers. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I brought him into our lives. I let him... You were a victim too, I said firmly. We both were. Maria was already at the clerk's desk, ensuring every document was properly filed. Mason stood alone, looking lost. I walked over to him. Thank you, I said simply. What you did today took courage. He's my father, Mason said, voice broken, and I just helped destroy him. He destroyed himself. You just stopped letting him hide it. Outside the courtroom, reporters had gathered. News of a prominent businessman assaulting someone during his fraud trial had spread quickly. Maria guided us to a side exit, but not before one persistent journalist called out, Ms. Hart, how does it feel to have won? I paused. Won? My credit was destroyed but salvageable. My relationship with my mother was fractured but healing. My face still stung from Calvin's hand. My duplex remained in jeopardy until the restitution came through. But I was free. Free from the lies, the manipulation, the constant fear of what Calvin might do next. Free to rebuild without looking over my shoulder. It feels like justice, I finally said. In the parking lot, Maria pulled out her phone. The criminal prosecutor wants to meet tomorrow. Are you ready for round 2? I thought about Calvin in his holding cell. Probably still ranting about ungrateful family, about the FBI investigating his offshore accounts, about the construction empire built on forged documents and stolen trust crumbling in real time. I've been ready since the day he forged my signature, I said. Mom linked her arm through mine. We'll face it together, the way we should have from the beginning. As we walked to our cars, Mason trailing behind, I felt the weight of the last months lifting. Calvin had been wrong. I hadn't destroyed everything. I'd simply shone a light on what was already rotten. The slap mark on my face would fade. The memory of standing up to him, of watching his empire of lies collapse in open court, of hearing a judge validate everything I'd fought for, that would last forever. Tomorrow would bring criminal charges, more testimony, more battles. But today, in a small courtroom in Northridge County, truth had won over manipulation, courage over control. And Calvin Dorsey, the man who'd preached that family helps family while stealing from us all, would spend tonight in a cell, contemplating the price of his definition of help. The bailiff had been wrong about one thing, though Calvin wasn't just restrained. He was finished. The courthouse steps felt different walking out than they had walking in. The gray stones seemed less imposing, the overcast sky less oppressive. Maybe it was the paper in my hand. Judge Morrison's order, signed and sealed, declaring me free from Calvin's financial web. "You need ice for that cheek," Maria said, ever practical even in victory. "I need a drink," Mom countered, then caught herself. "Sorry, that's probably not—" "It's exactly what we need," I said. "Mason, you coming?" He looked surprised by the invitation. Yeah, okay." We ended up at Murphy's, a quiet bar near the hospital where I'd grabbed the occasional post-shift beer. The afternoon crowd was thin, giving us space to breathe. The bartender took one look at my face and poured without asking. "To justice," Maria raised her glass. "To cool." "Truth," Mom added. "To family," I said, looking at each of them. The real kind. We drank in silence until Mason spoke. "He's going to prison, isn't he?" "Yes," Maria said simply. "The evidence is overwhelming. With the FBI involved and what happened today, minimum 5 years, probably more." "Good," Mason said, surprising us all. "Maybe he'll finally have to face himself without anyone else to blame." My phone buzzed, a text from my bank. Fraud alert cleared, account restrictions lifted, then another. Credit bureau dispute resolved in your favor. One by one, the shackles Calvin had placed on my life were falling away. "Look," I showed Mom the messages, her eyes filled with tears. "I should have protected you," she whispered. We protected each other, eventually. That's what matters. The bar's TV was showing the 5 o'clock news. Calvin's arrest photo flashed on screen. Disheveled, angry, nothing like the polished businessman he'd portrayed. "Local construction executive charged with fraud. Assault," the headline read. "Turn it up," someone at the bar called out. "I hired that guy once. Total crook." As the reporter detailed Calvin's charges, other patrons began sharing stories. Contractors he'd cheated, employees he'd threatened, families he'd destroyed before ours. The pillar of the community had been rotten to the core, and everyone seemed to have known except those of us closest to him. "Ms. Hart?" I turned to find an older woman approaching our table. "I'm Sarah Mitchell, from Mitchell Plumbing. Calvin destroyed my husband's business 3 years ago, forged change orders, refused payment, then buried us in legal threats we couldn't afford to fight." "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. "Don't be sorry. Be proud. You did what we couldn't. You fought back, and won." She squeezed my shoulder. "Thank you." After she left, Maria pulled out her tablet. Speaking of winning, the prosecutor's office sent the restitution timeline. "Calvin's assets will be liquidated to pay victims. You're first in line, but there's enough to cover the Mitchells and dozen other families he defrauded." "Blood money," Mason muttered. "Justice money," I corrected. "It'll help people rebuild what he destroyed." We stayed until the evening shift change at Harbor Light would have normally called me in, but I'd taken the day off, the first sick day I'd used for something other than being sick. Tomorrow, I'd return to IVs and vitals and the controlled chaos of emergency medicine, but tonight was for processing, for letting the reality sink in. Mom had been quiet, nursing her wine. Finally, she spoke. "The house goes on the market tomorrow. Mason, you're welcome to stay until you figure things out. Lena, I was hoping, could I have the couch for a few nights, just until I find an apartment?" "You can have the guest room," I said. "Noelle's been using the couch." "About that," Mom smiled slightly. "Your cousin called during the trial. She's ready to take Noelle back. Seems seeing you fight for your life inspired her to fight for hers." Another weightlifting. Noelle deserved stability I couldn't quite provide yet. As we prepared to leave, Mason pulled me aside. "The storage unit. There's more. Dad kept files on everyone. Judges, police, county commissioners, all his leverage. I already gave copies to the FBI, but people are going to fall. Big people. Good, I said firmly. Let them all fall. Outside Murphy's, the evening air was crisp. Mom and Mason headed to her car. Our car now. Since Calvin's were seized, Maria lingered with me. You know this isn't over, she said. Criminal trial, asset liquidation, credit repair. It'll take months, maybe years. I know, I touched my cheek. The sting faded but not forgotten. But I'm not fighting alone anymore. No, she agreed. You're not. As I drove home, to my duplex, my life, my future, I passed Dorsey & Sons Contracting, dark windows, chained gates. Closed by order of FBI signs posted everywhere. An empire built on lies. Collapsed by truth. My phone rang. The landlord? Ms. Hart? I heard what happened. Saw the news. Listen, about that eviction notice. Tear it up. Your credit issues weren't your fault. Take all the time you need to get sorted. Thank you. I managed around the lump in my throat. No, thank you. Calvin Dorsey bid on my properties once. Something felt off, so I passed. Glad to know my instincts were right. You did this whole town a service. After we hung up, I sat in my car outside my duplex. Lights were on. Noelle was home, probably packing. Life was returning to its axis, slowly but surely. I thought about Calvin in his cell, stripped of his tailored suits and practiced smile. He'd preached that family meant submission, that love came with conditions, that help always had strings attached. He was wrong. Family meant Mason testifying against his father, Mom finally standing up after years of control, Maria working tirelessly for justice, Noelle making spaghetti when I was too overwhelmed to function. Even strangers in a bar, sharing our victory because they understood the cost of Calvin's greed. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Rachel Chen from Channel 9 News. Would you consider an interview about your experience? Many victims never get justice. Your story could help others. I thought about it, then typed back, yes, but only if you include resources for financial abuse victims. This isn't just my story, it's all of ours. Tomorrow, Calvin's empire would continue crumbling. Investigators would follow the paper trails. More victims would come forward. The man who'd used family as a weapon would learn that real families protect each other. But tonight, I was home, bruised but not broken, bloodied but not bowed, free. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it resonates with those who faced similar situations. Where are you listening from? I'd love to hear about your own experiences with standing up to difficult family situations. Please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's build a community of support and strength together.